Welcome to October the 8th recess meeting that we welcome all of you here tonight. The first item we have on our agenda this evening is the approval of the official agenda. Have all of you had an opportunity to look at your agenda and the materials in your packet? I hope that you have. I would like to point out there are several items that were of correction, and I'll go ahead and show in the consent agenda, just as correction, that we have the personnel item of hiring a receptionist has been deleted from this evening's consent agenda. And if you look in the public appearances, we have delayed, and it is marked delete from the agenda, the proposal for the final draft of the city comprehensive plan. And we have deleted the fire contract to that of an executive session. And the final draft of the comprehensive plan, again, under board business, has been deleted. The first item was the public hearing of the comprehensive plan of the final draft, and we've deleted that. And then we have added an approval of the additional claims docket and consideration of approval of the proposal from Watkins, Ward, and Stafford as an addition to the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the official agenda?
Just with a correction, if I can, under the consent agenda, to pull a couple of items to the official agenda. Under category F, number 2, the if you'll pull that, and then under H, the item number 1, please.
Okay. Does anyone else have any? That would be sanitary department and fire department, I believe.
Those two items again, Alderman Cox would.
The F2,
F2,
H1.
okay, and H1. All right.
And we will have those in departmental business, and we will add the fire chief and the sanitation. Any other corrections or deletions? Do I have a motion to approve the official agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the official agenda as amended.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion with a second. All those in favor, please raise your hands. The we have 100%. Comments by the mayor and the Board of Aldermen. Are there any comments from any of all the people that are here this evening? I don't have any comments, not at this point. That brings us down to approval of the minutes of the meeting of the regular recess meeting of September the 20th and the minutes of the regular meeting of October.
I move that the minutes of the September 20th recess meeting and the October 4 regular meeting be approved.
We have a motion for the minutes of the 4th and the 20th be approved. Do we have a second to that particular motion?
Second.
We have a motion with a second. All those in favor? Any discussion?
Just the minor corrections on,
Okay.
with the minor correction.
All right.
Oh, and I can point it out now. At the top of each minute, you notice it said regular meeting of September 6th. Both? Okay.
Alderman Seth is talking about the lead-in paragraph to the minutes. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Any other comments? All those in favor of approving the minutes, please raise your hands. 100%, thank you. Hey, we're
Mr. Mayor, I
doing
move
good.
that the consent agenda be approved as amended.
We have a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended. Do we have a second to the approval of the consent agenda?
Second.
We have a motion with a second. Any comments? Well, I think we've already had some comments on regard to deleting the lawnmower and the sanitation truck. All those in favor of the approval of the consent agenda, please raise your hands. Oh, we're doing good. Brings us down to the city clerk and the approval of the claims docket. Now, we have you on here 2 times, Office of the Approval of Additional Claims Docket. Could we add the additional claims docket to that? I don't know that you've had a chance to browse through that.
You can do with the consent agenda.
Are you going to enumerate what was on the consent?
Oh, excuse me, you have to remind me of that every meeting, don't you? Yeah, I forget those things sometimes. I have not been drinking either.
Okay, good.
The consent agenda consists of approval of the claims docket. The Building Codes and Planning recommended approval of a request for a final plat approval for Stark Crossing, Phase 6, located at 1085 Stark Road. The recommendation is based upon the following. 2 lots are being platted into one. A new structure is being constructed and cannot be built on the existing lot line. Recommend approval of a request for a final plat approval for Reed Road crossing located on the southeast corner of Highway 25 and Reed Road. Recommendation is based on the following. To construct a multiple office government building, whatever government building is, on the property. Electric Department, approve of the meter reading contract for 2005-06. Authorization to advertise and fill vacant systems engineer and meter superintendent positions within the operations department. Authorizations to advertise and fill vacant lineman position. Approval of the power distribution monthly report to TVA. Engineering, authorization to repair the emergency siren equipment. We must have worn it out in the last tornado. Personnel has been deleted. Police and fire department approval of payment of invoice to utilize Homeland Security grant of 100% reimbursement funds for equipment for police and fire departments. Authorization for the fire department on new lawnmower has been removed. The Public Services Department requests approval of the best quote for nursery grown trees. Sanitation Department, that particular item on the truck has been removed to regular agenda. That brings us down to public appearances. No, it does not. Did we approve the consent agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we did.
All right, good. Brings us down to public appearances. And we have tonight, we have Mike Ritchie and Armadale Cruz. Are y'all here? Okay, well, come up and give us you're going to discuss your budget for 2005 and 6. If you'd like to come up to the front desk. Excellent, thank you.
I think you have you should have a copy of our budget in your packet, and it shows where we were last year and where we want to go for this year. And Mike Ritchie, who is also with Mississippi State University, is the new Convention and Visitors Bureau Chair for this year. So I'll let him start off.
Thank you. You will see the budget has not changed a tremendous amount from last year. On the revenues for the hotel tax, we have budgeted a modest increase there, which is to fund the management contract that we have with the Greater Starkville Development Partnership. And we have increased that by $2,000. Mostly we anticipate, again, the hotels to maintain a fairly consistent rate of occupancy due to the festivals and other events that are going on in town, as well as the events that are going on in the universities on top of that. On the food and beverage tax side, we've also increased a modest amount. We do expect this pie to grow significantly over the next few years, but our percentage has been decreased from 20% down to 15%, so we do still anticipate some growth in that, and we are budgeting for a modest increase there as well. We've already secured matching grants for the upcoming year, 2 grants in that category, one from the Mississippi Development Authority and another from the Choctaw tribe for advertising, which will cover our visitors brochure that we're going to be printing. And then on the expense side, you'll see that our operating contract, again, with the Greater Starkville Development Partnership, which covers the marketing of our operation, is going to remain consistent from last year. And the advertising increase there is coming from the grant revenue for the most part. Other than that, I don't think you'll see any really significant changes in any of the line items there. The only real main change you'll see is in special projects and events, and those are sponsorships that we have to help with the other festivals and events that are going on in Starkville during the upcoming fiscal year.
Are there any questions?
Board members? Does our representative to your board have any questions?
Or comments?
Yeah, talking about advertising on it, if you could just sort of talk about where the Visitors Convention Council is advertising, what media outlets, and the type of return we're getting on those investments for that.
Sure.
Because I think some other folks might find it interesting.
Okay, yes. For this year, we are happy to say that we did receive some grant money from the Mississippi Development Authority. Last year, we did not receive any because there was a significant cut in tourism. However, this year we are planning to advertise in Meeting South and Convention South magazines. This will hit our small meetings market. We have established a partnership with Continuing Education at Mississippi State University, where we can be combining our convention and small meeting services. And with those advertisements, we hope to bring in various meetings throughout the state that meet within Mississippi to Starkville. We will also be continue our advertising with Ladies Home Journal. As we all of us know that most of the time our travel plans are planned by the women in our households, and so we've always felt that we've had good lead requests from Ladies Home Journal. For instance, we have received about 450 leads from our advertisement in Ladies Home Journal for this fiscal year. We have a new magazine that we're going to be advertising in, which is Preservation Magazine, and this is more of your high-end historic preservation magazine, which is very similar to Smithsonian, and we will be advertising our Cotton District Arts Festival and Art in the Garden events in that magazine. We also do various advertisements in the East Mississippi Business Journal, Mississippi Business Journal, Mid-South Golfer to promote Highlands Plantation and our Golf Digest rated Mississippi State University golf course. We have a billboard on Highway 45 coming from Tupelo to Starkville, and we are looking for spaces around Jackson to add a second billboard, since we did receive grant money for billboards. We also, we'll be adding USA Weekend to our advertising campaign. As through my travels, I've talked to several other tourism organizations and CVBs, and they have had lots of requests from this publication, so we're going to try it out. And then, of course, we also advertise with 91.1 WMSV, with their Southern Sports Tonight radio program and their Game Day remote scoreboard program, and we're also advertising on the Juke, which is a program on NPR, which is will be throughout Mississippi. So we've had lots of response from these publications. They've been proven very good for us. We gave out, just to give you some further background, is for our visitor brochure, which has all of our lodging, dining, and attractions in this brochure. We've given out about 24,000 of those this year through our advertising, through different conferences and groups that have come to Starkville, and our distribution at several welcome centers throughout Mississippi. And we've given about 2,500 of our retirement brochures, because the CVB does handle our retirement development program. Does that cover it, Sumner?
Any other alderperson have any question they'd like to ask?
Parma, do you have
Yes.
any plans for the Conventions and Visitors Bureau moving downtown?
Yes, from what I hear from the partnership board and our leader, David Thornell, they are looking at a place downtown, and we do have, the chamber and CVB does have monies put away that will go towards the renovation and purchase of that building. We've been wanting to do that for a while now. It's just a matter of finding the right location and financing it. But we are looking at a place downtown.
Thank you very much. We
Thank you.
appreciate you attending tonight.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
we
sir.
need to actually approve their budget.
Approve it.
We need to approve their budget?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a motion that we approve their budget?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion with a second. We've had discussion about it. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This brings us down to citizen comments. You have approximately 3 minutes, and I will bring the nail down. Are you first tonight, Albert?
Yes, I bring that. Good evening to the mayor and board of aldermen. Just a few concerns of the citizen. We have Halloween this month, and a lot of people, they do not want to participate at all, and I think that if you don't participate, you have your lights off. That's supposed to give the people the respect that you're not going to have anything to do with Halloween. But also, the time fall back an hour, it'll be dark early. And a lot of people are concerned about the dark spot that we have. A lot of time we don't have enough lighting for the pedestrian. And with the time back an hour, a lot of people might come up to the four-way stop and look and take off, and not knowing that it's pedestrian. And that's just concerns of the citizens.
Thank you, sir. Will you be out with a red light and your vest on to kind of watch after the children and stuff?
All depends.
I see, okay. Anyone else who would like to have 3 minutes?
I'm Frank Jones, and we had Country Club Estates, a new subdivision that's out on South Montgomery, was previously on the planning and zoning docket last week. I was out of town, unfortunately, but it got taken off of the docket because the city was not through with their inspections of the sewage and the water and such. What I was hoping they would do probably is approve that subject to us finishing those things and given their punch list before this meeting. I got the punch list at 1:30 today, and even though that's not a lot of time, we've still knocked out half of this little punch list. So what I was hoping that we could possibly do is approve this subject to these punch lists, which still have to come back to the department heads. I know Bill, it's got to go before Bill Webb and you, Mr. Mayor, to sign off and that kind of thing, or something similar along these lines to speed up this process so that the people we've got waiting to go in there and ready to build can take advantage of a month here of good weather that we may have and not get into the winter months. The stuff that I've seen on this punch list is, a rock in one of the sewage manholes, and it's little small stuff that within a couple of days we could probably have finished. And had I had this 2 or 3 days ago, we'd probably have it all finished by now. But anyway, I was just hoping that's something that we could speed the process up in some way.
Mr. Jones, just one quick question. I'm not familiar with the matter that was on the agenda for the planning and zoning, so you're telling us that the planning and zoning removed that matter from its official agenda at its last meeting?
Because the city had not finished their inspections on, they got a camera, the sewage lines and that, and George can tell you more of why.
No, I'm not ready to hear from him. I don't want, no.
Okay.
I'm going somewhere with this. So they took it off the agenda, so you're asking this board to take action on a matter that will procedurally go through planning and zoning for action, then come here. Is that what you're asking us?
I think so.
Okay.
But
And now, Mr. Rommel, are you asking us to circumvent that process and that procedure tonight, or you just, I just want to be clear. Thanks, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor and Board, of course, I'm sure we could talk all day about who did what to whom, when, and why, and how, and all, and didn't do, and all this type of thing, which serves really no useful purpose. I would recommend and so move that Mr. Rummel request the Planning and Zoning Commission to call a special meeting to deal with this matter of this particular subdivision once completion of the punch list and all required city tests have been successfully concluded.
that'd be fine with me, if we could do that.
We have individuals in that subdivision waiting for building permits and all sorts of other potential problems, and I would like to move the process along a little quicker, but I do not want to circumvent the Planning and Zoning Commission. So I would ask that Mr. Rummel ask them to call a special meeting to give this approval, if that is their pleasure, once the punch list and other required items have been completed.
That's a motion.
That is a motion.
Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
We have a motion with a second. Does anyone else like to discuss this procedure?
Just a point of clarification, Lynn or George, can y'all talk a little bit about, are there any extenuating circumstances here that we should know about? For example, was the request placed and a reasonable amount of time not provided so that it would be included in that planning and zoning meeting? Was it something that because of Hurricane Katrina, for example, that delayed our normal response? I guess I'm looking for an extenuating circumstance to...
It followed the correct procedure, is filing in a timely manner, and it went before the site plan review committee, which meant in inadvertent, someone signed saying it was complete, but then they went back and looked at it again from the water department, looked at it again and discovered that the final inspections had not been made. And so at Mr. Devlin's request, it was reported to the planning commission, and the planning commission said, all right, because this is not complete, we will remove it from the agenda. And I suggested that perhaps we could make a recommendation pending things, but the commission elected to remove it from the agenda. That's the history of it.
Thank you.
And it appears that there was a city procedural error involved in all that with certification of completion of the test, which, when they were not in fact complete. And again, I simply emphasize that I absolutely refuse to circumvent Planning and Zoning Commission, but we can speed the process with requesting them to call a special meeting to consider this matter when all testing, punch list, whatever, is concluded successfully.
That'd be fine.
We have a motion with a second. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand, please. We have 6. All those opposed, raise your hand. 6-1. Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Other public appearances.
Hello to
Hello.
the Mayor Camp and Alderman, and to all of those citizens that are here tonight. I'm Patricia Sanderson. I own Greystone Apartments and 3 vacant lots adjoining the new Doctor's Park that's being developed. And I have a real problem with the way the drainage is being developed. The development process of the draining from that property, which has many natural springs on it. It had a huge, if you look on the map, you see a huge pond, and there's tremendous amount of water, and there are huge pipes to carry the water, and all of it ends at the beginning of my property. So I have a real problem, and I have a copy of my concerns for the board members. And Mr. Rummel, and is Bill Webb here, city engineer? And is Larry White, the city planner here? The planning and zoning committee. I did not know who would be responsible. I've spent a big portion of 2 or 3 weeks trying to understand what is happening to the property surrounding me. And I'm not opposed to development. I really am in favor of developing, and but it needs to be done correctly. Development needs to be so that the entire community benefits, and not to make a dumping ground of an adjoining property. So I request that the people involved please carefully review the drainage plan of that site preparation, and I would like a copy of it, because talking with various people, I can't really see what their plan is except to pipe all of that water off of the undeveloped land and put it on my property. I don't see any other plan, and that's going to be a tremendous amount of water periodically. And with the way the land is sloped, you can ask engineers, and they will tell you that, yes, there is going to be a flood problem with the way it currently exists. And so there's 24 acres of undeveloped land that is being developed, and a tremendous amount of water coming from that. It is at the site development stage at this point. They're just moving trees and putting in the sewage, and they've put the sewage on my drainage on my property. But there is a utility easement, but I've lost a big corner of one of my lots due to the sewage easement, due to the utility easements, and so I've lost a big section of one lot. I just don't want to lose my apartments and the rest of the lots. And I think it'd be much easier if they would develop a good, clear, beautiful plan to do something with this water other than give me a problem with it. Thank you.
Mr. Webb, could you check on her problem and maybe give us a report at the next board meeting in regard to what is being done?
I'll be glad.
Thank you. And would you give him a letter, please? Thank you. And we would like a report to the board in regard to what her complaints are, if that's possible. Do we have any other public appearances? Thank you. That moves us down to, I believe, the mayor's business. And I'm requesting that we extend the emergency status for another week until we get all of our FEMA obligations and trackings resolved.
I think Mr. Cox has a
I'm not,
question.
can you just explain that process a little bit? It would seem like, is this a need to do the paperwork?
Well, some of the stuff is just not coming in as far as the village and the hours and other issues like that. And I think if you look in your docket too, that we're already beginning to say, tidy a lot of that up. But for example, last Friday, we had a situation in which we were invited for a photo op, and that was announced that $1,400,000 would be offered for these areas of the counties that were affected by the hurricane. So there's still some issues as such like that, and I feel like that we'll be closing that down fairly soon. And then we had the tornado, 2 weeks ago?
I guess what I'm just trying to understand is, so we have to have emergency status to file paperwork? I mean, it
No.
would seem like we've addressed all the work that needs to be done, and
I think it's been represented to me by the FEMA folks that it is important to us, for us to remain in emergency status until all the payments made, and we were supposed to have everything pretty much gathered up by Wednesday, and I think most of my department heads are gonna be ready. I know I've already got something from the fire chief, and I heard from Ms. Boyd, I think she's going to be, not tomorrow, but very shortly with her paperwork, so I think all of our paperwork is coming together. But we are still having requests for our police and fire to go down on the coast, and as long as the requests are coming in for them to be going down there, as it relates to the remaining issues of Hurricane Katrina, then I think we're going to need to stay in that mode so we can then bill the municipalities or whoever's asking us to come down. We can bill them and they can get reimbursed as well. So it's kind of flowed that way for, two ways for a while. And I don't know how much longer that's going to be. I know we've got some folks headed
Mr.
down
Mayor?
there. They have already been down there.
I'm sorry, excuse me. How long does this need to be extended?
What do you think, another week?
By law, it can only be extended
Just a week
7
at a
days.
time, 7
out of
days.
time.
Mayor, I move that we give authorization and empowerment for the extension of the emergency statuses for the city of Starkville for an additional 7 days.
Do we have a second for that motion?
Second.
Do we have any other discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. 100%. Thank you. Brings us down to board business. And this is not, the CAO is not listed here, but she's going to be responsible for many of these items right here. The first one is, all of them. A report on the timeline to provide remaining services to the annexed area. I think Alderman Cox asked for that the last time.
And Mr. Webb and Mr. Devlin.
They are prepared, okay, good.
It's gonna take 2 of us.
Yeah.
You have a PowerPoint presentation, I'm impressed.
Well, wait till you see it first.
It works.
It works.
You haven't been drinking up that head.
Thank you very much.
We were asked to do a timeline on the remaining services in the annexed area. Thought we'd do a quick recap to bring you up to where we are now and then go from there. I can't see that.
Well, it takes a minute to warm up.
You were right.
Maybe you can.
You can follow along in your handout. We've recently are in the process of completing about a $3.5 million interceptor for the sewer service that provides the base infrastructure for the annexed areas. You've probably seen them out working there predominantly. All of this construction is out, pretty much outside of the bypasses, whether it be on 25 or 82 bypass. The result of this is that the multi-office government building that you just approved the lot for earlier tonight would not have been possible if that infrastructure hadn't have been out there. Nor would Millsap, Pontiac, Buick, and dealership or the lakeside properties, which are going to be out on New Light Road, which is a large, I guess, student housing type situation. That has all been in place. We also have under contract and just finishing up about $5.5 million water capacity improvement project, which now makes us able to provide fire service to the annexed areas as well as to shore up and solidify our existing rating under the Fire Bureau. Previous to that, those improvements, we would not be, at one time, we were being faced with not adding any customers on to our existing system without these improvements. So now we have those improvements in place, and they consist of a good bit of things. We'll show you that a little later on.
One more.
We've also spent a little over $500,000 in the annexed areas resurfacing roads or turning gravel roads into paved roads. Some of our strategy for paying for all this is since the interceptors are located now in all of the annexed areas, now bear in mind that's interceptors, we still need to get laterals and collectors to the individual property owners.
But a lot of this area, if you look at or can visualize it in your mind, the 82-25 interchange, a lot of that area has nobody out there. It's undeveloped. It will be sometime in developing. We do have the infrastructure, the backbone there for development. We're not planning on adding any laterals or any other collectors lines in that area until such time as some plat or some commercial venture is started out there. Of course, that 82-25 is a prime interchange, I would think, and shouldn't be too long before something hits out there. When it does, we're ready because we got the sewer service out there. The grants that we tried to find for the Rock Hill area was an important area in our overall scheme, because the Rock Hill Road area, which is actually North Montgomery extended, is one of the most densely populated areas that we did annex. And that was why we targeted it for the CDBG matching grant that we failed to get in the previous administration. We're attempting to try that again. There's some $376,000, I think, of money out there that would take sewer service to that area, Rock Hill, which is populated on both sides all the way up to the city limit line. We are connecting additional customers as they request sewer service, but we don't recommend and would like your concurrence, maybe on a case-by-case basis, that there's got to be financial feasibility of running a sewer service to one customer or two customers. In other words, if it's going to cost you $50,000 or $30,000 to run sewer to one person, then we don't think it's financially feasible to do that, and don't recommend that we start doing that until such time as those areas have gone up a little bit. A lot of these, well, most all of the areas that we've annexed are being serviced now by either some type of a pumping, not pump, treatment, little small package treatment plant or septic tank, and we would recommend that those areas stay on those as long as possible, assuming there's not a high density demand in those areas. Of course, Rock Hill Road not being one of those. We would like to go ahead and get sewer service to Rock Hill as soon as possible. And we would like to have a meeting with the alderman, as that shows the alderman of the ward, the CAO, the mayor, and the staff to evaluate prior to deciding whether or not it would be to our best interest or their best interest to run a sewer line a quarter mile to one customer. Not that we wouldn't, but it just would take some thought. This is a map, basically, of the sewer system, and I believe one of our main lines, colors didn't come out on that. The shaded areas are the actual areas that we didn't do, and those are the only one that printed, it appears. The colored ones, we got, I'll just kind of show you there. That right up there is where our our pumping station is. We got a lateral that runs down into there all the way over to across the bypass and on over to 389. Then there's another lateral that runs down through here, comes on across, comes down, crosses 82, it comes down, actually crosses 12 right down in there twice. It comes across through Pinecrest, New Light Road, and crosses 12, and right in there it goes right in front of Sanders' store. It goes over into the north part of the research Cornerstone. And over in here, we've got it from some points right up in there, ties in, and it goes up there and ties in back down to that point. This is the area that I'm talking about as far as Rock Hill Road, that we need to furnish sewer to those people as soon as we can. Some of these, like this one right here, goes to one house. It's not, in my opinion, worth it, or Doug's worth it right now to do that until that area, that area right in there has got a good bit of development potential, and right now, that's not where we need to spend our money. This area right here that line goes up to about 4 houses. This one doesn't go to anywhere. It just comes across the bypass from 25 or 82 bypass to undeveloped land. This line right here runs from the lagoon up to the Kerrigan house, then comes on across into some developable land south of Highway 82. And part of that, right in there, we might want to put on the front burner, so to speak, to get up to the Kerrigan house, which has been in the city for a long time, hadn't had any sewer service. The remainder of it is undeveloped, and until such time as they start developing that, I would think the second part of that would be on hold. This is some of the projects that we've got scheduled, designed, installed, and estimated. The sewer main along the Country Club Road Country Club Road actually is not in this last annexation, but in a prior one. We had gone several years ago and run sewer from the south city limits, which is at the Country Club, north through the Country Club to take all of those houses that are built just north of the Country Club on Wedgewood and Sand Wedge and 3 Iron or whatever they are. And there was a gap between the Country Club property and Country Club Road. And it's 90 acres that has been developed again by Mr. Jones, who was up here previously. And we didn't want to, at that time, everyone was being serviced on Country Club Road by septic, and still are, by septic tanks, and are not in any critical shape. Some of them now are expressing interest in tying on to us, and we now are to the point where we have allowed Mr. Jones to fill in some of that 90 acres with his infrastructure, and we're going to go out of the north side of his sewer system and install sewer on the Country Club Road properties. So that, we should have that done by this time next year. Pinecrest and Arbor Drive are in the newly annexed area west of town. We need both water and sewer service to that. We feel like that we can have that in by this time next year also. Trim King Pumping Station, the capacity is going to have to be increased on that. I think Doug has talked to you about that earlier because of it's going to take additional load once we're moving out from one that's pumping station and putting more load on it with all this annexed area west of town. Once it starts developing, the major pumping station out at the northwest of that intersection between Highway 25 and 82 will be pumping into Trim Cane Pumping Station. Then it will be repumped to the wastewater plant. So that station needs to be improved. Sewer service south of Louisville, that's the old Highway 25. That again is an area that runs from Will Town just past the Industrial Park Road, where it ties into Old 25 or Louisville Street, and run down to the city limits, down at the Shriner Building, down toward the Deerfield area. Yeah. So that all is, we got the designs, timeline, and also hopefully weather permitting and money available. We figure $355,000 will take care of that. A lot of that will be done by source of supply labor, us buying the materials, and we'll take bids in December for the next year's source of supply, so that we'll have the contractors available at short notice to go do that. So we've got that scheduled. The fire protection, according to the fire chief and the rating bureau, that once we annexed the people into the city, they immediately benefited from the city's fire rating. But we also want to provide fire hydrants in those areas. And as the chief alluded to at the last meeting, we now have probably the strongest Class 5 rating that we have, due to improvements that we've made in the water department and he's made in the fire ranks. That we're pretty proud of that. As I said before, we approved 90% or completed 90% of our water improvement system. This was all mostly done through SRF funds, state revolving loans, which was done at a low interest. Some of it was 1.5%, 1 3/4%. I think the sewer was 0.5%. So we got the money when it was at a very low interest. And the water needs for the next 10 years, unless we have a heck of a growth, we should be in good shape for the next 10 years with potable water. Those are some of the areas that we're planning on running fire protection to: Pinecrest, Rock Hill, South Louisville, which again is Old Highway 25, and the Reed Road west of Highway 25 bypass. Several years ago, before we annexed this last time, we acquired the Reed Road Water Association and got a head start and got fire protection and large enough lines west of the bypass on Highway 25. So all we need to do now is tie on to them. We don't have to deal with the bypass at all and extend those west out to Babylon Road, and we'll be, actually we need to go west and north on Lewis Lane also. So that, this is the analysis or schematic of the work that we've done or had done over the last several years. We had this tank, and that one. That was, I think it was that one, and that one, before we started this last improvement program. And as you can see, it was this one. We had these three, that one, and that one. As you can see, this one and this one was the same height. That one was lower. That one was was basically worthless because it was too low. When it was built, when we built the other two, they were taller. So therefore, we had that one torn down. That's a scale street tank, and a new one put in its place. And then we built this particular tank, which is out on Bluefield Road, and it is under, it's in use as we speak. We have another tank. This one here is under construction out on Azalea Lane. You can see it from the park, from the Sportsplex. It is basically complete. They need to paint, come back and paint it, and they're supposed to be due this month to come back and paint that and complete that tank. So we have now that particular tank, which is at Scale Street, this one, which is at Curry, this one, which is Loxley Way, and this one, which is in Bluefield Road, and one going up on Azalea Lane. So we will have actually 5 tanks in place. In addition to that, we built well number 7, which was put in place out on Bluefield Road. We've got well number 8, which you've heard us discuss. It's the one that was under construction also on Bluefield Road that the contractor defaulted on, and we were in a takeover situation with the bonding company on that. We've got booster stations on 2 sides of the south side of the airport, and one on Bluefield Road at the railroad track, which will take care of this lower. Notice that elevation, and this elevation over here is lower. This is, of course, at ground level, drops about 30 feet going west, so we had to put booster stations to boost the pressure of these 2 tanks in the wells, so that when we sent it back to the east part of the town, the pressure was the same. So we have all of that with the exception of the Azalea Street tank complete in well number 8. There is a future tank that's designed or scheduled to go up on out on Bluefield Road that'll be in the next 5 or 6 years to be required. Now, of this, all of this, we built this tank, Curry Street, the Scale Street tank, the Bluefield Road tank, and one of the booster stations with existing or out-of-pocket money that the city had. The remainder of that and those improvements have been made through those SRF grants for loans. So we're in fairly good shape as far as water now. It does allow us now to be able to run the fire protection to the outlying areas. The fire protection has already been run across the Cornerstone Industrial Park. And we're now getting ready to get easements to go up the west side of Bluefield Road, which would allow us to get sewer to the south side of that Cornerstone Industrial Park. This new sewer system, the infrastructure that we just recently completed, has sewer on the north side of it. So we'll have the north side and the south side covered with sewer, hopefully in the next couple of months. This is a water map that shows the, some of the new lines that we need to put as far as the water system. This is the Bluefield Road area right here. We have got one of our new wells and tanks there. We got a new well in the booster station right there. And that's the booster stations that I talked about. Everything west of this line is at a lower grade, and that's the reason for the booster stations. So anything that goes this way has to be, pressure has to be boosted. As you can see, we still have a good bit of these dotted lines are existing. The solid lines are lines that we've been recommended to improve and to upsize. This one being along 25, this is Lynn Lane, Academy Road, and up, I think that's Spring Street there. Some different areas. We still have a good bit of infrastructure that we need to upsize some of these lines. And we held off on doing some of that till we got this latest visit from the Fire Rating Bureau to see exactly which lines, which areas of town we had too low a pressure, or we didn't have the capacity. So once we get the results of that, we will be able to pinpoint some of the weak spots in that system that we have. Here's the cost and the timelines on some of the fire protection. Louisville Road again would be, we think we can have that by this time, all of those by this time next year. That particular one will be, that'll be on our right of way now. So I started to say be on highway right of way, but that's our right of way, so we shouldn't have a problem getting permission to do that. The same with this one, Reed Road West, all of those are going to be on city streets now that we've annexed them. So we think we can we have to do the design, get it in paper form or digital form, and send it down to Jackson to the health department for their approval of all of the water improvements that we're going to make, as well as all of the sewer system improvements. So it takes a little bit longer to do it since we have to actually send it down there and get their approval on it. But we feel like we can have that designed and on the way down there by the end of the year. And next year, given a good summer, we ought to be able to have those fire protection lines in place. This is just kind of a recap of the monies that we've spent or have spent and are going to spend. I don't see this. We have the sewer.
Yeah, second item down.
Okay, that includes what we've
Yeah,
got
what's
to do
under
too.
contract, what we have
Okay.
under contract or have already done.
So basically, we've got a huge investment in the annexed areas, and hopefully that they'll grow up to meet our expectations and along the bypasses so that we can recoup some of that money back through sales tax and whatnot. But that's pretty much where we are.
Just got those for next year.
That's 355 I was looking for. That's the money that we feel confident that we can get in the ground by this time next year. So it'll be a little over $500,000. Any
Questions? Alderman?
Mr. Mayor, I'm glad that we got this report tonight, and Mr. Webb, we appreciate all the progress. Hopefully, we can make some of these services soon come to reality for our citizens who are waiting so patiently. I remember when we last annexed back in the latter part of 1998, our annexation resolution mentioned that these services will be provided within 5 years from that date, which would have been 2003. And then we're approaching 2006. I hope we show further commitment to making these projects come to reality and finding whatever source of revenue we can to help the people in these annexed areas.
Mr. Webb, Mr. Devlin, I also appreciate the presentation and all the hard work that actually went into the things that you reported on. I'm not certain that I've got a complete sense of what is still pending. And would it be fair to say then by 2006, with the exception of the sewer that we talked about earlier, when they're a quarter of a mile or 2 miles away from the line, that all city services will be provided to these annexed areas by the end of 2006?
Well, I would like to say yes, but we can't guarantee the Rock Hill Road area because that's going to be a fairly good chunk. And if we can get some CDBG help or other grants, I think we can do it. But it'll cost, that one line alone will cost the same as the rest of the sewer altogether, pretty much. But we can certainly try our best to find some loan money out there or some type of grant money and do the best we can. And if not, we might can reshuffle some internal funds to start that process. But I think, other than that one area, I think you could say that, yes, sir.
Well, you know, with the, you saw what we're going to do next year on hydraulic fire protection, and I think that's going to go over very favorably with the Rating Bureau when they come back. What is it, 2 years, William, when they come back? 4 years?
That was one of the things they said we
so,
need to do is to work on that.
You know, the citizens are getting the Class 5 rating, and if they hadn't gone to their insurance carrier and, you know, gotten a rate reduction, then they certainly need to, you know, do that. You know, the rating is there. It's just, and that was there ever since the city annexed the facilities. You know, they benefited from our fire rating the moment they were annexed. And like Bill said, we've got just the main interceptor lines just ready. I mean, they're ready to go and bring out to whatever development occurs in those areas. And we have been, as people ask for service, an example is Greta Lane. We had 2 people down there, one sewer, and we got all the easements and bought the pipe and got ready to go. And then we ran into a little delay with this airport relocation project. So, you know, there was 2 customers we're trying to get to. We gave one to a customer up on Old West Point Road who was ready to hook up, and we bored under the road and got him his service. And so, you know, we're being proactive in getting the service, and by the end of next year, we'll be in, I think, in excellent shape. We'll have everything there to have a good foundation as development occurs.
I would like to say, I think is that I don't want anybody to think that they're paying a sewer service or a sewer fee and not getting sewer. No, if they're not hooked up to our city system, then they're not paying a sewer fee.
They're not being charged yet.
That's correct. And it's not like they're being charged for something they're not getting, but they are getting all the services, assuming that their taxes are paying for.
Yeah.
The sewer system, of course, will have to be run out there, and it's a fee-generated revenue coming in. But they aren't being charged for it if they're not getting it. So,
Do we have other people that would like to ask questions?
Let's talk a little bit more about the major area still remaining in Ward 3. The area around the Country Club, Sand Wedge, South Wedgewood,
Those have
Country
city
Club,
sewer. Yeah,
Country
they
Club Road, the Frank Jones subdivision development about which we were talking. Now, it was my understanding that because of the Frank Jones development, that would facilitate our providing sanitary sewer service to Country Club Road. Is that correct? Okay, what about the areas, the Country Club itself and the areas around the Country Club?
The areas around the Country Club have city sewer.
Yeah.
The Country Club has city sewer on it. They just, last I thought they were going to reverse their pumps and tie into our system. They were on a lagoon at one time.
And we went out and TV'd some lines and, you know, and they were ready to hook up, but I don't know what the status is, but it's there when they get ready to hook up.
So you're saying that every residential structure in that area that I have described, with the exception of Country Club Road and the Country Club itself.
Well, they've got it. It's up to them to hook up.
The Country Club. And then the Country Club Road will be facilitated by the Frank Jones
That's correct.
development, and will be able to now hook up.
That's correct. Wedgewood and
Sand Wedge, South Wedgewood.
yeah, those
they're
streets
already hooked
have
up.
been hooked up. Now, that bears some explanation. At the time they put the Country Club, sold those lots and built it. Those lots, of course, were outside the city limits, didn't have any sewer. So what they did was they put a septic tank in there. And the septic tank did what the septic tank does as far as the solids and whatnot. The effluent from that ran off They collected it, and it ran down to the south part of that area into a pumping station. Then it was pumped back up into the lagoon, and that was permitted through DEQ. When we annexed it, we went down, took the pumping station, ran sewer to all those houses, hooked back up their effluent line. So some of them are still going through a septic tank, then the effluent from the septic tank is going into the city sewer. They chose not to bypass their septic tanks at that time to, I guess, didn't want to spend the money. But we are actually treating the effluent from the septic tank. So they have access, they have sewer service to every lot out there on Wedgewood and, what is it? Sandwich.
Sandwich and South Wedgewood. You're correct, that does bear some additional explanation, yes.
Well, it's kind of
So there are some houses that are not hooked up to the city's sanitary sewer system, even though we have an ordinance requiring that.
they're hooked up,
There,
but it runs through a septic tank to get to us.
We should have never brought the septic tank up.
And
They're
instead
hooked
of their
up.
field lines, instead of the field line,
I'm with
You're just going out and filling, it hooks up to the
it hooks
system.
up to the sewer
Yeah.
system.
uh-huh.
Right.
Yes.
Ms. Brewer, it's my recollection that we gave authority, I think, for Golden Triangle Planning and Development to pursue that grant for sewer services in the Rock Hill area.
Yes.
Oh, yes, sir, we did.
We did that a month or two ago.
I understand. Ms. Brewer, will you please follow through on that? I have a lot of residents in the Rock Hill area, and I'd like us to pursue that grant. These, again, as I mentioned earlier, we annexed these people, a lot of them involuntarily in 1998, and we owe it to them, and I understand that we're moving as quickly as we can, but if we can stay on top of that and get a frequent report to the board, because I want to make sure that these constituents are given this service, and I'm often asked about this. And so if you could just give us a report about that, because, it is something that needs to happen.
I'll be happy to. I had a call in Ms. Benson, what's the day, Tuesday. I had a call on Friday and Monday. I think she's been out of the office.
Yes, ma'am.
But the last word I heard is some of those that particular grant, or those grants, the CDBG grants, are on hold based on the Katrina disaster. So I will pursue it again this week, though. I'll get in touch with you and see where that stands.
Very good, thank you.
Back to Ward 3 just a second. Do we intend to leave this sanitary sewer septic tank arrangement as it is?
I believe that was just done as a matter of convenience for the homeowner. They already have an outflow from the septic tank. It's easier to connect to that than to get rid of the septic tank or pipe around it or whatever. So it's really a matter of choice.
Plus, they probably didn't want the yard dug up, PC.
Yeah.
At any
Very,
time.
very simple.
Anytime they're wanting to tie in, we'll accommodate.
Okay.
The agreement that we signed in our ordinance says that within 90 days of a sewer system being made available, you will tie your system into it, which they have done. Technically, now it doesn't get,
In somewhat of a roundabout way, yes. Okay.
Well, as I understand it, the part of the septic tank that usually stops up is the field line that goes out there that you've hooked to the sewage, is that?
That's correct.
Right. And we still have yet, though, the matter of the country club.
right.
Okay.
And you don't
They can
think
hook up. Yeah, we've been out there, talked to them, showed them where they had to hook up, and
We
you know,
suggested
they-
a way
they can
for
hook
them
up
to
there.
hook up without doing any additional piping, but they undoubtedly hadn't done it yet. But it's available to them when they want to.
There appears to be some interest. I will follow up on that and get with y'all about this. Mr. Mayor, unless any of the other members of the board have questions about this report and so forth, I have another matter I wanted to get back to once this matter is concluded.
Okay, that's fine. Any other questions? Thank you for such a thorough report. And would you like to get back to your other matter at this
That will be
point?
fine. Mr. Mayor and Board, the mayor announced at the beginning of the meeting the removal of the hearing on the comprehensive plan and adoption of the comprehensive plan itself from the agenda, and I would like to explore and go a little bit further in that particular subject matter area, since it does not, as far as I can tell, appear on the agenda
That's
again in
correct.
some other form or fashion. I think it goes without saying that all members of the board are very much interested in making progress on adoption of the comprehensive plan. This is something that was recognized by our citizenry in numerous public hearings, one in each ward, and something recognized by the members of the Board of Aldermen that simply needs to be done to ensure quality of life in Starkville's future. We seem to be lately treading a little water on this type of thing, and I'd like to see if we could, in a more formal fashion, pinpoint some very definite action on this particular matter. I had occasion to talk with Interim City Planner George Rummel last week about this general subject area, and had occasion after that conversation to talk with the city's consulting planner, Shelley Johnston, today about this matter. Both Mr. Rummel and Ms. Johnston, as do I, agree that Ms. Johnston needs to present to the city a final work product, the final draft of the comprehensive plan, which incorporates all those, either incorporates or gives reasons why not, all those suggestions made by a multitude of different people in the public hearings that have been conducted. Ms. Johnston indicates her absolute willingness to do this, and as of around lunchtime when I talked to her, she said that she would get in touch with Mr. Rummel to be sure that she had all the suggestions that had occurred, particularly in the public hearing, which she was unable to attend, and that by the end of the week and hopefully on Monday, she would have ready for the city a final draft of the proposed comprehensive plan, which included in some type of highlighting fashion changes that had been suggested to things that she had suggested, as well as hopefully an accompanying memorandum, if you will, where she explained other things that were asked and why she thought those particular suggestions were appropriate, inappropriate, whatever, for inclusion in the comprehensive plan. What I would like to recommend to the board tonight is that if Ms. Johnston reaches her schedule, which is to have available on Monday, email to Interim City Planner Rummel and others, she may even come, depends on the exact situation, a final draft of the comprehensive plan, that we then, of course, enter that on the city's website. We will then also have some hard copies of the plan printed for distribution to those citizens that would like that particular format. Then that final draft be put out for any additional public comment, and that the Board of Aldermen and appropriate city staff, including the consulting city planner, if thought appropriate, have a work session on the comprehensive plan to make sure that all of us understand the subtleties of some of the aspects of the plan and make sure there's no misinterpretation of certain things. So I would like to suggest that if Ms. Johnston meets her goal, which I think she will, and has a comprehensive plan draft by Monday, that it immediately be put on the city's website, as immediate as our IT man can do it, and that I will take responsibility for printing some hard copies of the comprehensive plan, and that we give notice in the newspaper to the public that here it is, last go-round on the comprehensive plan, and that within a week of receipt of the comprehensive plan, or thereabouts, we schedule a work session with the members of the Board of Aldermen, the appropriate city staff, to make sure we all are on the same page as to what these things are saying and what the things mean. And then that we move from that work session, assuming everything is okay and there is a majority consensus, that we move forward with whatever changes, major or minor, that are suggested, that we schedule this for adoption, I would hope, at the second meeting.
Yeah.
In-
Won't have time the first meeting.
Right, in November. And I will so move if a motion is necessary.
Well, make that in the form of a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Would you like me to restate the motion?
No, it'd take us too long.
I see.
Do we have any discussion about the motion? I think he made his point very clear.
All of us are eager and anxious to proceed with this. Citizens are eager and anxious.
Did you want to say something, George?
Mr. Mayor and board members, you talked to Ms. Johnson at noon. I got in touch with her at 5, and we discussed some of the issues. My primary issues with the plan as it is right now is I'm trying to sort out and put the plan into the various elements so that it is more easily understood. And that's what I need Shelley's assistance on. And I'm also trying to understand the chronology of the public hearings before the Planning Commission and before this board, to make sure that we have covered all of the legal aspects of hearings on comprehensive plans. And I have been going through the Planning Commission minutes and going through the board minutes, trying to determine when all of these, and this was at the suggestion of Councilman Cox on this, to make sure that we have followed the whole process completely, which I feel that by and large we have. But I want to do it to my satisfaction so that I can make a wholehearted recommendation to the board and that nothing is left out. That's my primary concern, because it's a guiding document. And so those are things, and I think that Shelley and I can get together and nail down these issues, nail down the time framework, the chronology and everything else, and get it on the website. Because I have gone through, I have 3 different documents that I'm working now on editing. So editing on the web is hard to do at times because of the fact that, and so go back and forth. But I think within the framework of your motion, that it can probably be accomplished, which I would like to see done because I've got some other things to get on with.
Thank you. Any other discussion? We have a motion with a second. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Thank you. Very good. This brings us to the report and recommendation from the Operating and Organization Committee, which Mr. McLaurin is the chairman of, and we will now turn it over to you to give us a report.
Take one, pass them down, please. Mr. Mayor and Board, we have for your consideration a number of recommendations from the Organization and Operations Committee of the city. Let me review for you a number of related facts. The committee has met on 3 occasions, October 3rd, October 7th, October 17th, each meeting lasting several hours in length. At these meetings, we have started the discussion following the board's charge of taking a look at the organization and operation of the city, in effect, department by department, to see if there are economies that we can bring about and efficiencies that can result from taking a look at the organization and operation of the city. Given the things that were occurring within the city, we started this look at the office of the mayor, specifically the role, duties, and responsibilities of the administrative assistant to the mayor. We added to this a look at the receptionist position in City Hall, all these things being interrelated. And we added to this a thorough look at the office of the city clerk in terms of staffing in light of the number of responsibilities that have been removed from the office of the city clerk in recent months, those specifically being the major function of collection of taxes, or most taxes, the removal of the writing and printing of the minutes, removal of the indexing of the minutes, removal come January of maintenance of a voter roll. So we have a number of things that have been removed from the clerk's office, and indeed, some of those things we are paying other units of government, specifically Octavia Hall County, to do such things as collect taxes, and we will move into the process of working out of the tax collection system within a matter of a year or so. So all of these things have been very carefully looked at and considered by the committee. We have talked with the city clerk. We have reviewed 2 documents that the city clerk has provided, one in the packet, one given to the committee at the last meeting, though there were some similarities in both documents. We have reviewed the staffing of the city clerk's office as well as City Hall in other municipalities located across Mississippi. And so that brings us all to the conclusion of a certain number of recommendations. These recommendations following upon the recommendations that were presented and approved at the last meeting. You have in front of you a written report of what I am saying to you, and I would like to specifically present the 4 recommendations that the committee has for your consideration at tonight's meeting. First, that the staff of the office of the city clerk be reduced by 1 person. Second, that given the city's influence and interest on proceeding with the comprehensive plan, code enforcement, and so forth, a function that is going to become very, very important, we propose the transfer of Mrs. Alice Bassett from the office of the city clerk to the building planning department as the inside code enforcement official. Code enforcement is a tedious process filled with all sorts of pitfalls that revolve around proper notifications, proper schedulings, proper newspaper advertisements, all this type of thing. And while we have a gentleman that will work on the outside with code enforcement, if we're going to be effective and if this is going to work, we simply have to have an inside person who will work at the direction of the city planner to keep the internal process moving along. Ms. Bassett, of course, came to the city clerk's office from the code enforcement, and of all persons in the city's employ, knows the most about the code enforcement process, the codes and ordinances of the city, and would require the either no learning curve or just a very small learning curve to get back right into the scheme of things. The third recommendation, if Ms. Bassett is going to be transferred, then what happens to budgetary matters? The third recommendation is that Mrs. Bassett's salary, fringe benefits, and any other related budgetary items or portions of line items within the city clerk's office be transferred from the city clerk's office to the building planning department to support the transfer of personnel. So in effect, we recommend the reduction of one person, but no termination for any person, because the inside code enforcement officer has to be filled. So we recommend a transfer with the appropriate resources and support from the budget for that transfer. Fiscally, this would be a wash as far as the 2005-2006 budget is concerned. And finally, the fourth recommendation is that the city clerk, who of course is the head of the city clerk's office, in concert with the chief administrative officer, develop a listing of all duties that will be assigned to the remaining individuals in the city clerk's office. The committee, by the way, has the general opinion, actually not the general opinion, the specific opinion, that the positions of payroll clerk and accounts payable clerk are currently at full-time positions. Those then are the four recommendations. The committee's report to you is a unanimous decision of the committee, and I would move adoption of these four committee recommendations.
Mr. McLaurin, before I second that, Ms. Bassett's transfer will be effective in the morning, October 9th, for the minutes. Is that your recommendation?
Alderman Perkins, I had not given the actual date of the transfer thought. Might we consider that as soon as is practicable to give Mr. George time to make arrangements for office space or things of that particular sort? But I certainly think it could be accomplished by the end of the month, for sure.
Right, and then secondly, just for the minutes, Ms. Bassett's salary will remain the same.
This will be a complete transfer from one budgetary department to another.
I second, Mr. Mayor.
We have a motion and a second. We're now open for discussion.
I just would like to voice some concerns that I have with this. It seems to me like we're having a repeat of the last meeting where we're talking about abolishing a position in the city clerk's office, another one, which makes me wonder if this trend continues, whether we want to have a city clerk's office in a couple more meetings. And we're doing so without any sort of documentation provided clearly describing what Ms. Bassett's job duties and responsibilities were and how the redistribution of her job duties and responsibilities are going to be done with the other employees in the city clerk's office. And so I was wondering if you could elaborate on that for us.
Certainly, I would be happy to. Of course, we have purposely chosen not to present a list of redistributed duties of the people in the clerk's office, because we feel that is the city clerk's responsibility, and we think the city clerk and the chief administrative officer can come up with the proper delineation of those particular duties. So we thought that it was a function of the city clerk's office as opposed to a function of the committee, though the committee intends to review that list of duties, as hopefully the full board will do. Now, keep in mind, the Organization and Operation Committee will be moving to other areas within the city. Just because we make recommendations that something be changed, in this case eliminated, that's not to say that there will never be recommendations that something be added. If, for example, the committee were convinced that there was some fault in our unanimous agreement on this, we certainly would be willing to look at it again. We do not think that is the case.
I'd also like your opinion on how you feel the city clerk's office will be able to function with one less person on their staff.
If you will look at some of the explanation that is given in your handout, the committee has concluded, after talking with the city clerk and reviewing the information that the city clerk submitted, that given the reduction of this number, those existing personnel in the city clerk's office will be able to absorb those particular duties.
Okay. A couple other concerns.
And I might also add that other cities our size and larger do such.
Well, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned that, because what I thought of doing was I decided to call municipalities throughout the state of Mississippi whose populations range from about 18 to 23,000 people, and find out from their own city clerks how they function, so I might get an idea of what it is we can do to allow our own city clerks to better perform their own job. And I found that while you had some that may have only had 2 or 3 deputy clerks, every one of them had additional employees that worked within their within the city clerk's office and did a lot of the job duties that ours do, so that you had an average of easily 6, 7 employees in a city clerk's office.
Alderman Corey, I hear what you're saying. I also know from long years of experience that you've got to be very, very careful in the questions that you ask and the way these questions are asked, because they will produce, as is the case when you send a letter to the Attorney General's office, all sorts of differing numbers and so forth. Last year, we conducted a very, very careful study of numbers in the city clerk's office and came up with our conclusions on the number needed.
And what number was that?
It varied depending on population size, but all of them, and you got to be careful if you're talking, well, does the city clerk's office do financial things? Does the city clerk's office do personnel things? Does the city clerk's office do this, that, or the other? And so you've got to be careful that you're trying to get apples and apples as best one humanly can. And so the number varied, but it appears that 4 seemed to be the norm.
Well, notice, for example...
Now, let me say, and those cities, many of those cities, not all, are still collecting taxes. They're still doing the minutes, and so forth.
Well,
Where we're not.
If you look at Starkville's own history, like if you go back 15 years or more, back to 87, 88, 89, when Mr. McClure and you yourself were the CAO, which, by the way, I've heard many wonderful things about.
You're too kind. Some say yes and some say no.
When you look back to those years, you had not only 2 assistants to the CAO, but then you had 5 employees within the city clerk's office. And that was with the city having a lot less population than what we have now.
I would have to think about the numbers that you state and the exact time frame. Of course, what was also present at that particular time in the city was a multi-million-dollar federal grant program of all different forms, shapes, and fashions going on within the city that does not exist at this time.
Another concern that I have is that if you move Alice to the building department, you're going to have another employee in there, because I believe Alice makes around 23 a year. And you also have Sarah, who works in there, who makes less than that, even though she's been working in that department for many years. And so I wonder how you plan to resolve a possible morale issue with putting someone in the building department that will start off making more than people that have been working in there for a while.
Of course, the Organization and Operation Committee, as it moves to the Building, Planning, Zoning, Codes Department, will have to look at those particular situations. We are aware of that.
Just also, I wanted to ask Mr. Rummel, if you don't mind, did you request Alice for this position?
I don't think so. I didn't request a specific person. This goes back to the times when I was requesting the code officer. And somehow or another, that grew out of
As far as I'm concerned, his answer is no. He did not specifically request the transfer of Alice Bassett. The city carefully considered, well, for example, once we had come to the conclusion that there could be one less individual in the clerk's office, there was the question from someone on the committee, well, who gets terminated? I responded, if we're thinking about the long-term needs of the city, no one should get terminated because we're going to need the internal, inside code compliance officer to keep up with the extensive record keeping that is required of notices, advertisements, scheduling of hearings at board meetings and so on and so forth. And the thought came about that, well, we have someone in the city clerk's office that just came to the city clerk's office from the code enforcement. So it makes logical sense if we're trying to be serious about code enforcement, which it was my understanding that the board is very, very serious about code enforcement, and the fact that any one of us in our given wards can keep a code enforcement officer pretty busy with a long list of things, whether they be dilapidated structures, overgrown lots, the list just goes on and on. If we're going to be serious about all that, we better get moving on setting up the process of code enforcement. And it seemed to us the most logical step was to transfer to that particular spot the person that had the most experience and knowledge in that spot. That was in one of the roles that we thought could be combined within the clerk's office.
Code enforcement is something that I personally find important too. I don't know if this is the best way to go about doing it or not, but I'd like to ask, has Alice herself expressed any sort of interest in this position?
Ms. Bassett said to me that she, of course, wanted to remain employed with the city, and that if the board thought this was the proper thing to do, she wanted to keep her job and remain employed, and that would be all right. Did she request the transfer? No, specifically.
I guess just one more question. I'd like to ask, since she's here today, Ms. Outlaw, our city clerk, how do you feel that this might affect your ability to perform for the city and the efficiency of your department?
Alderman Curry, I think Ms. Sanderson said it best. She said organizations should be developed properly so the entire city benefits. So that not to make a dumping ground out of one department. Whereas we will do what the board instructs us to do. Alderman McLaurin, just a year, maybe a year and a half ago, you were adamant that I could not perform the job, or I didn't need the position, don't give it to her. Now, just a year and a half
Ms.
later,
Outlaw, that's not exactly correct, but.
that's exactly correct. But now, a year and a half later, I really want to thank you, because a year and a half later, you're saying that, oh, she's doing such a great job that she can work with less than what you yourself worked with it just 20 years ago. So I just want to thank you for having that confidence in me. Like I said, we will do what the board instructs us to do. We will give it 110%, whether it's to eliminate one position, two positions, three positions, it doesn't matter. We will do what we are instructed to do. However, there are a couple of concerns that I would like the board to consider. Since we are reassigning and abolishing positions, I respectfully request that you would leave the more experienced personnel in the clerk's office, since we are being reduced. It just makes sense to leave the more experienced personnel there. And I spoke with the planner, Mr. Romo, myself, and he did inform me that he did not want another person, didn't need another person. But if the board was willing to give him a person, he would gladly accept. And I understand that. But he also told me that whoever the board assigned up there, he would have to train them the way he wanted them trained. Now, and Alderman McLaurin, you're right. Alice did go from code compliance officer to the city clerk's office. But you didn't mention that she left the city clerk's office to go to code compliance first. She was the accounts payable. And if we're going to move someone, and he has already said that he will train them according to the way he wants them trained, I would suggest that we leave the more experienced personnel in the city clerk's office. And since we are reorganizing, I want the board also not to just look at the duties, but will you please look at the salaries in the clerk's office? And Alderman McLaurin is, like you said, you've done surveys, and you know that the city clerk's office, the salaries are way low. I really wish that since we are doing this, you would take the time out to look at the salaries and revamp the salary structure as well. Thank you.
Mr. Corey, you have any other questions?
Well, I'd just like to ask, are there any other employees within that department that would like to speak or have any sort of opinion they'd like to share?
Are there any employees in that department that would like to address Mr. Corey's question?
Well, I'm here as the accountant of the city, and it seems that Emma and I are the only two left that are going to assume all these duties, and I resent that you think there are two positions in there that are full-time positions, and I suppose we have part-time jobs. I mean, I'd like to see any one of you come and sit with us any one day, and none of you have asked me how I feel about this, adding more duties to me and cutting our people and expecting us to keep on working, and I resent that. And I feel I've done a good job, and I've been here 8 years, and I've done everything that's been asked of me, and I will continue, as Ms. Outlaw says, do everything that's asked of me. But then you're singling out two employees in our office saying that they have full-time work and can't take on any additional duties. Now, how fair is that?
And before you comment, Ms. McLaurin, I'm Emma Gibson, and right now, I'm doing what everyone else refuses to do. I am answering the phone when the call comes in. I handle purchasing. I am doing the purchase license. You have to excuse me because this is very emotional that, once again, the city clerk's office, to me, is getting dumped on. Now, the way our office is set up, you can't have two people in the office who do nothing but their job. Because when the citizens come in, they see 4 people sitting there. You're going to remove one of those. So they're going to see 3 people sitting there. And you told 2 of those 3 people not to do anything. So a customer comes in, they don't know that I'm not to ask payables for assistance. Because I was told that payables and payroll don't answer the phone, don't assist customers, do nothing because they are loaded down. Even though the county handles the taxes, we still have delinquent taxes. We still assist attorneys like Mr. Favor here when he come in for questioning about prior taxes. And whoever else needs assistance, we still do that. That office still performs those job duties. And it is unfair not only to the people in that office, but it is unfair to the citizens to come in and to wait, because that's what they're gonna have to do. Just the other morning, Ms. Outlaw was on the phone, one person was assisting another customer. 2 people stood at the counter. Of course, I wasn't there. 2 people stood at the counter because the 2 people that you said not to do anything did not get up to assist them. That's not fair. The citizens are suffering because there are continuously cuts and cuts and cuts going on in our office. You say take out payables. Receivables. Receivables is not needed. Receivables has a full-time function, not only just a license. We have more than 100 active vendors at the landfill. We have active vendors at the wastewater, where it takes a week to process each. And then there are purchase licenses. July alone, has over 300 licenses that has to be mailed out. Accounts receivable is behind right now because when I moved to purchasing, the board said spread it out. Receivables is behind right now as a result of spreading it out. The people that it was spread it out to didn't do it. Therefore, it's behind. Privilege license is behind. Landfill is behind. You can only do so much in 8 hours. We work through lunch, we come in early, we stay late, and it is still not enough. It is still not enough in 8 hours. We cram 12 hours of work into an 8-hour day, and now you say the office can't do without another person. I don't think it's fair, and I know it's a lot of emotion from me, and I'm trying not to let it be personal, but that's what it feels like. It feels like a personal attack on the city clerk's office, and we are having to suffer as well as the citizen. And I just don't feel that is right. Of course, that is my opinion, but I don't think it is right. And I think that the city clerk's office should be looked at with a more objective view.
Mr. Mayor and Board, in response to some of these comments that are indeed emotional comments, the committee carefully considered the matter. We know what is being done in the city clerk's offices all across the state. The committee did not say that accounts payable and payroll are not supposed to get up and help somebody.
But when you say,
Wait a minute. We said, I don't intend to go back and forth. We said that it was our sense of the matter that payroll and accounts payable were full-time covered-up jobs. The city clerk even said that in our interview with her. And so thus it was our sense that none or a minimum of reassignment of duties would go to those individuals. But that is what the city clerk is supposed to furnish to us to look at. It's her first decision as to what can go where. That's the whole point in letting her as department head do the assignment as opposed to the committee doing the assignment. Now, there are 5 employees remaining in the city clerk's office, counting the city accountant. Is that not correct? Are they 5?
No, you just took one away.
Alderman McLaurin.
We count the city clerk also.
Alderman McLaurin, you made a statement that wasn't entirely accurate. You instructed me, when you abolished the records clerk position, that payables and payroll were to assume none of those duties.
That is correct on the records
And
clerk
the duties
position.
were-
We're
the
talking
duties-
about other things now.
But the duties were answering the front, getting to the front counter, answering the phone. These were the duties of the records clerk that you instructed me, or let me know that the payables and payroll were not to absorb any of those duties.
That was the committee's sense of the thing, a unanimous decision.
That's not what you relayed to me.
We have a motion with a second. We've had discussion.
I just want to make one quick comment. Just obviously, I think kind of obvious where I stand on this, and I fully intend to vote against it. I would ask that my fellow aldermen vote against it as well for the purposes of doing what's right for the city of Starkville. And should it pass, I would ask our mayor do what's right for the city of Starkville and veto the motion.
I'll take that under consideration, depending on the situation. All those,
Just a second, Mr. Mayor, one final thing. Mr. Corey, in response to that, the committee thinks it is doing what is best for the city of Starkville.
Mr. Mayor,
yes, ma'am.
all of this dialogue that's going on now with the city clerk, Ms. Outlaw, and her staff, did this go on with the committee? Because it seems to me that all this dialogue should have taken place before we got to the table. Now, was there a breakdown in communication? I want an answer to that from the committee.
Would you like to address that?
Just simply to say that the city discussed the matter with the city clerk, the department head.
and this dialogue took place then. Well, I know not from the other staff, but her objections and her reason as to why this should not be done.
Yes, as we progress down here with the first discussion with the city clerk, there were virtually none of these types of things said. As we moved from that to the first written thing, we got a little bit more. Then with the second written thing, we got a little bit more. And then with this, we get all this tonight. So we have gone over the period of time with adding and adding additional objections.
It seems as though Ms. Outlaw was disagreeing. I saw her shaking her head with your assessment that this was all fleshed out beforehand.
Well, the committee spoke with me once. I think it was the very first meeting, and Ms. Brewer came to my office and said the committee wants to see you now. There was no time for me to prepare. Just go now, speak with the committee. That's the last the committee has spoken with me.
And not an unusual thing when one sits down and talks with the city clerk. One thinks that the city clerk can adequately explain the duties being done by the personnel in her office. That's what we ask, and you explain.
In answer to your question, no, there was no dialogue as such that's been exhibited tonight that was part of that.
That's what I'm...
We have a motion, we have a second motion. Many members of the board have spoken. Would there be additional alderpersons that would like to speak? I call for a vote. All those in favor of the committee's recommendation, please raise your hand. That's 5 votes. Those opposed, please raise your hand. There are 2 opposed. Thank you. That passes. It moves us down to the next item on our agenda is the approval of an amendment to the ordinance increasing the citywide parking fines. I believe this was on our agenda at the last board meeting.
We're excited to get more input from the court, and what you have in part of the packet will give you an indication of what the judge, and I believe Mr. Favor participated in that, as well as the chief. So those are the recommendations made from the multiple votes involved.
Is there any questions in regard to the adjustment to the parking fines? I don't think they've been adjusted since, what?
1993, I believe.
93.
You had funds from the last time it was adjusted.
Do we have a motion to approve the amendment for the ordinance of increasing the citywide parking fines?
Mayor, just 1 second, let me find the list here.
And you want the paperwork of that off, and I can provide it in my copy.
Do what?
Would you do that, please?
And while you're looking at it, I'll be happy to read it, unless
Thank
you'd
you.
like to, Mr. Mayor, before we,
No, I'll let you read it. I don't have it, mine's probably lost in my packet as Mr.
There is an
McLaurin's.
Just 1 second here. We're
I have
talking
one
about
now.
an ordinance, which for some reason I do not see.
Look,
Here you are.
you can have
Thank you.
this one. Right here, I got one. You'll read it?
This is an ordinance to amend ordinance number 1993-5, regulating parking on certain public streets in the city of Starkville, Mississippi, and providing for the enforcement of said parking regulations and establishing penalties for violation thereof. Be it ordained by the mayor and board of aldermen of the city of Starkville that ordinance number 1993-5 be amended to read as follows, and this is the good stuff. Section 10, fines. The fines for the following offenses in violation of this ordinance are as follows. A, parking over 2 hours, the new fine will be $10. B, parking opposing traffic shall be $20. Parking in a no parking zone, $20. Parking so as to block a fire plug or fire hydrant, $50. Parking in a fire lane, $50. Parking in handicap zone, $200. If not paid within 7 days, all fines will be doubled with the exception of parking in handicap zone. Next section just talks about the effective date. The ordinance shall take effect and be in effect from and after 30 days from the date of passage. If any section or provisions of the ordinance shall be adjudged to be invalid or unconstitutional, such adjudication shall not affect the validity of the ordinance as a whole or any section of the provision thereof not adjudged invalid or unconstitutional. This will be published in the Starkville Daily News if we take it up, and I'd like to so move that we amend the current ordinance to include these fines as I just read.
If the board please, the chief is here to be able to provide you information on the enforcement of the parking signs and everything to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks.
I'll give you 3 minutes, or I'm gonna bring the hammer down.
3 seconds.
Yeah, 1
I just want to
minute.
thank Rodney and the judge and Mr. Brewer for working with us on this. It's something that's been needing to be addressed for a long time. We've also worked with the court to develop a new method of tracking more effectively unpaid parking tickets. And I'm coming before the board tonight to tell you that we're going to put a concentrated effort in collection of unpaid parking tickets heretofore. Also that we will be enforcing this with wheel locks. So if we encounter individuals as we patrol and we believe their car might have received prior tickets and they in fact have not paid these tickets, we will wheel lock that vehicle, and that vehicle will not be moved until such time as the tickets are paid. We would rather do that than implement arrest warrants or towing policy.
Or having a party, to have them down here and then arresting all of them.
Probably be a little much on parking.
Well,
But anyway, just want
Thank
to tell
you.
you that we're trying to square that into the way. Thank you.
do we have a second to the motion?
Has it not already been said?
It has not been
It
seconded.
has not been seconded.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion with a second. I think we've had discussion on
Let's have a
it.
little more.
You want to have a little more
More
discussion?
discussion.
What do you want to talk about?
Just one thing that I would mention procedurally, keep in mind that we are adopting this change as an ordinance,
That's right.
which means any time that it's changed, we have to amend the ordinance, where if we wanted to, we could have a section in there which said the monetary amount of the fine can be adjusted by board order without the necessity of amending the ordinance. So it's just a procedural thing, does not matter to me. Of course, keep in mind, now, the way it's done, we will wait 30 days after, and, we've got to do the publication, where otherwise, we would not have to do all those procedural things, and it's not a big issue with me. I just know more and more cities are making things in ordinances, part of the ordinance subject to just board amendment by order, certain sections, like the amount of a fine or something, as opposed to having to re-adopt an ordinance amendment every time.
Can you make an amendment to the motion to take care of that?
I can, I'd have to think of the second, but it doesn't matter to me particularly.
At this point, wouldn't we, since we are amending our ordinance, wouldn't it have to be reduced to writing to do that, to make that amendment?
I was getting ready to reduce it. If we want to do this, I can reduce it to writing, and then we can hold this for a moment and come back and look at the writing. It does not matter to me. It's no life or death matter. It's just a.
I think it's important we do this. We won't have to be bringing it back up in another
Well,
10
that's fine.
years.
It's
So
just we need to have the complete thing in front of us, so we can.
do what?
Yeah, let's hold it, get it in writing.
Yeah, let's just hold this and go on to the next item. I'm gonna give y'all a break here in a minute.
How about now?
That we'll move on to the next item, and I'd like to get down to the departmental business before we take a recess, which we only got a few things here left.
Wait a minute, I got a call.
Authorization of the implementation of telephone number 311 for the citywide usage. Ms. Brewer?
Mayor, one of the topics that was discussed during several campaigns that I listened to and thought I personally thought was an excellent idea, and when I had the opportunity, I was discussing with our IT person, and he said that that was a possibility, so he did some research down at Bell South, and your paperwork there should provide you that. Bell South has that available to us. I realized that it's an easily remembered number, and that's the goal, 411-911-311. In this case, the hotline feature or action line, or however you wish to delineate it, or promulgate it to the citizens, would be allow them to have a single phone number where they can call in and provide information to the city, whether it's a dead possum in the road, or it's a street light out, or whatever issue they might find. We could then have someone who directs them to it. Now, that would tie in with the potential reception position, which has been discussed. I don't necessarily know that we need to implement the number until we have someone who is there to actually answer the phone and provide a log of what was requested and then where it was directed, so that we could track that. But the goal was to have an easily remembered number that the residents could tap into and feel as though they were getting some results and having something that would be easy for them to feel participated in the city's issues that they find significant.
Ms. Brule, some folks have been concerned that there would be an overwhelming of people calling this number, and they envision the old operator of sticking things into lines like this in order to say, sort this type of thing out. Could you give us some type of an opinion in regard to perhaps this number being overused?
Well, my hope is that that would not be the case. I mean, it would almost be polling the various departments to see how many calls they get in a day, or how many emails I get from the board members to things that are going on that they want to have taken care of, from dead possums in the road to streetlights out to no parking, parking in places where there are no parking signs. I would hope that as we begin code enforcement in some seriousness or in some depth, we would find less and less of those problems cropping up. I really don't know. I mean, it's sort of uncharted waters, and I suppose we could find from other cities what their results have been, but my guess is that a person answering the phone would be able to direct those calls to the proper departments. I would hope that we wouldn't have a huge number of them, although at the same time I would like to see participation from the residents that says that, we see something wrong and we're wanting to get involved.
And it actually works, 311. You don't get this dial tone saying you got to dial a 1 or a 0 first or
According to Bell
whatever.
South, it should work, yes.
I see.
It would tie in it's no different than anything else. You point the 311 number to whatever number would be the city number. Instead of having to remember 323-2525, all you'd have to remember is 311.
Do we have questions from any to all the people?
What are we going to, what is our plan for hiring somebody to answer the phone, transferring to a particular person or department?
We have that going on. We stopped the applications. We've got over 57 people that have applied for the job, and we're presently going through all of those applications to get the top selections for an interview. And I hope that we will have on the November 1st. Is that not right, gentlemen? We would have a recommendation for a hiring of a person that would take these calls and so forth. And this is not going to be implemented to win.
Well, we wouldn't, obviously the board approval, but we would implement it until there was someone there to take the phone call.
So it would not be something that would be implemented without a person taking the calls there.
I know I've tried several times calling up here for different individuals, and I get the menu at, you could cook 3 meals while you was going through that menu.
It's aggravating.
I finally just hung up after probably more than 3 minutes waiting, and there's one phone number that I've been knowing here for 25 years, and I just called the police department and asked them how could I get a hold of this certain person. And of course, most of the public don't know that they can do that, and they're sitting there hanging on the phone, listening to the menus, and they still don't know what to do.
I understand. We're going to get that resolved.
Okay.
We're going to get that resolved. Are there any other questions?
I have one.
Yes, ma'am.
And it may sound silly, but now no one person will be in place for 8 hours. So what happens when I dial 311 and there's not, the reception is not there to answer? Where will that call go then? What will I get?
You would essentially get the same after-hours kind of number, since it's an 8 to 5, the city's an 8 to 5. You get after-hours or weekend, be the same voicemail options.
Basically what we are getting now when we call?
Essentially what you're getting now. Hopefully refined a little bit. I mean, two.
I hope so.
Two, you find me, you know, one, you find the city clerk, whatever the number is, as you go through the menu.
I hope so.
First of all, let me say that I thank Ms. Spruill for trying to make City Hall more accessible and easier to get to. I think that some of my colleagues' comments point out that we do have some kinks that we need to tweak and work out of this system as we're moving forward in this endeavor, and I want us to make sure we work those out on the front end rather than go ahead implementing something which will frustrate our citizens and us as well in trying to call up here. So, I mean, I like the concept very much. I want to make sure that we play enough devil's advocate with this and ask the question, what happens if 4 people call this number at the same time? Where's it going? What happens? How are we going to address those issues before we just rush out to do this? And I guess we're talking about not even if we're waiting to interview and hire a receptionist, first off. But could we also try to troubleshoot this thing on the front end and ask some of these questions and the what-ifs and all this before we move directly into this, even once we get our receptionist hired, just to make sure that we get these kinks out and don't make mistakes in the implementation of it. Is that a possibility? To just sort of have somebody, I guess, you know, we've got this organization and operations committee that's doing stuff and looking at efficiencies and effectiveness within the city operation. I mean, they've been meeting 3 times in the month of October. Can they add this to their agenda of things to sort through and work out? Since they're interviewing the receptionist anyway.
Are you looking at me?
Yes, we're all looking at you.
Well, I guess certainly we can with the concurrence of the members of the committee. Ms. Spruill?
Oh, I was fully expecting that all before.
Okay, good. Mayor?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yes, we certainly can.
Yeah, very good. So we'll add that and we'll move on to the next item. We had no motion to deal with. Approval of the city drug policy. Chief, I think that's one of your issues, isn't it?
They're pointing at each other.
And asked that I.
Fire chief.
Yes, Mayor.
And he wants you to speak for him?
Well, he kind of had indicated he was tired of it.
Really? Okay.
So, I'm just kidding. Chief, it's okay. I'm just kidding. He had shepherded this through from the previous board. If you, in your package, you'll see that his letter to me indicated that the previous board had asked him to pursue this, and he did so with great diligence, and we wanted to make sure that I didn't let it die with the new board coming on, that it didn't get lost in that mix. So Catherine Kirby, the former city attorney, has looked at it. Mr. Favor's looked at it, and it has been looked at by the chief at some length, and he's done a lot of research on it, and I think it is what the original board, what the previous board intended that we provide them. So it's more a matter of if it's conceptually what this board wishes to adopt, but it's basically a random testing policy for all employees.
Any discussion from any of the alderpersons?
I have a couple of questions.
Yes, ma'am.
The first one is, who is Dr. Thruss? Where is he?
That information was provided by Mr. Young. I am not familiar with who he is, but apparently that's who I don't think it should be.
He is the one that has been doing the random drug testing for commercial licenses already. John, the personnel director, already has him online as the testing MRO, or the medical officer that's going to review it.
Okay. Who actually collects the specimens?
The
LabCorp?
Yeah.
They come here to City Hall, or you said, where is this specimen collected?
In this policy here, in the previous deal, they go to Columbus, but in this one, they will come here. In other words, let's just say if today's the day that they random drug test,
They will come on at shift change and they will give you a list for, let's just say the fire department. They'll give me a list and say, I want this one to go with us. And they will take them to wherever they do the gathering of, specimen, yeah.
Okay.
For lack of term, but they'll watch it and everything.
Are we set up where this can be done here? If they are coming, you said they've been going to LabCorp in Columbus, is that correct?
That's right.
So now, are we set up here in Starkville at City Hall or at Fire Department or wherever they gonna do it? Do we have the facility for them to do this?
What they will do is gather the specimens here and secure them and then take them to the lab and have them tested.
My
Does that answer
question,
your question?
no. Do we have a facility here that is adequate for them to collect the specimens?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Basically, it's a bathroom. No, they will take that employee to the bathroom.
I know that I know basically it is a bathroom, but there is some security there.
Yes, there
so
will
that's
be-
why
there will
I'm
be
asking that.
total security, yes.
And all of our drug, we use the urine specimen.
Right.
Is that what we would be
That's
using?
what we're gonna be using.
Okay. Because I know you can use others, so that's why I'm asking, what will we be using?
That's what we're using.
But I still want to find out where this doctor is.
Any other questions at this time? I think, Mr. Cox?
I do actually have a whole series of a number of questions, and I think it'd probably be appropriate for us to take this under advisement until the next meeting to allow all the older people to be able to address questions and get all their concerns taken care of, so.
Is that a motion to take this under advisement?
It is indeed.
We have a motion, we have a second. All those that would like for this motion to be taken, this item to be taken under advisement, please raise your hands. Unanimous. Man, we're doing good tonight. We're going to take a break, short recess here.
Because it's just not that simple. You pull it, go in the bathroom.
2 hours.
I've done too
Yeah,
many.
you made another hour.
But
Yeah, we do.
The passage of time. We have shared your joy at the birth of your children, and proudly we have watched them grow. We've taken care of your healthcare needs during the good times and the not so good. Your parents and grandparents have depended upon us. Together we have shared the struggles and the wonders of life. At Oktibbeha County Hospital, we are celebrating 30 years of being your lifelong choice in healthcare.
Richard, get everybody in here that's supposed to be in here. I'd like my office people to have a seat, please.
Maybe you should just turn it back.
Thought about standing up to it.
So they do this morning.
So are we all back? Okay, very good. Recess is over.
Thank you.
I would like to revisit the parking fines, and Mr. McLaurin has provided us with a section here. I'll let you read that. Heck, I don't see anybody to read that.
Well, you know, I don't write very well with my art reading hand and so forth. But what I have done here is add a section 16 to the ordinance. You have it in front of you. It's on, I think, the second page. And it reads as follows, Section 16, modification of monetary amount of fines. Hereafter, the monetary amount of the parking fines enumerated in Section 10 above may be changed by order or resolution of the Board of Aldermen without the necessity of an amendment to this ordinance changing said enumeration of fines, period. And then we would change on your other page, the Section 16, to make it Section 17. And this prevents us from having to do an ordinance amendment every time fines may change, though they don't seem to change that frequently.
Any discussion?
Just a question. I know last time when y'all brought this up, some of these fines were at the $50 amount.
Yes, they were. From my discussion with the folks in the court office, they said that they have to add 50 cents to them.
Right.
I added 50 cents to them to make it an even number for the payee. Apparently the court, the judge, chief, and Mr. Fager don't care that they're 50 cents, and there's any 15.50 or 10.50 or whatever it is, so that's the only distinction.
Did we round up or down?
Oh, I always round up.
Always round up. Any further discussion on this ordinance?
We had a motion and a second, and I guess you're making an amendment. Mr.
Right.
Request. I certainly would accept that as a friendly amendment.
All right, you want to, let's say we need to vote on the amendment to the motion first. And do we have a motion for the amendment?
Well, do we have a second for that amendment if we're
Yes.
doing it that way?
Okay, we have a second for that amendment. All those in favor of this, of the amendment to the motion, please raise your hand. That's 100% excellent. Now, this, with the amendment to the motion, let me, do we have a motion for the ordinance change?
Yeah.
Yes, we did.
Okay. We're not going to discuss it anymore. I think it's been seconded too, yes.
One thing is that we are amending ordinance here, so this doesn't take effect for 30 days.
30 days, that's right.
First time, it's got to go the third.
Okay. 30 days, is that clear, Ms. CAO?
Yes, that's fair.
Okay. All those in favor of the ordinance, the new ordinance with the change of the parking fines, please raise your hands. 100%, thank you. That brings us down, let's see, we did the drug thing, to departmental business. We will start with the Chief Administrative Officer, please.
I have 3 items all related. Not used to this microphone, but 3 items all related, and I'll be brief. My rather lengthy letter to you in your board packet related to how I tried to put all this together. I've talked to several people, and the history of this is a little convoluted, but in your packet should hopefully have the 1946 ordinance as well as the gradiometer information that Ms. MacArthur was kind enough to come this evening and discuss, as well as some of the other historical pieces to this. Apparently, very briefly, back in 1946, when we accepted the cemetery, the board at that time discussed creating a cemetery commission, but never did do so. Or if they did, I couldn't find any minutes that reflected the actual creation of the cemetery commission. So it has kind of developed over the years, and Ms. MacArthur is the expert on this, and I've used her in a number of occasions to kind of fill me in. What I was attempting to do was see if there's a way for the city to have a better handle on the lots on the cemetery itself, both on the upkeep and on the sale of those lots. We have not in the past put those sale of those lots in front of the board. And so as the board is the arbiter, or the keeper of the land of the city, anytime we sell a lot, I would think it would be incumbent on the board to participate in that, or at least to approve it. So that was one of the reasons that I thought it would be appropriate for us to have a cemetery commission that then provides the board input and annual reports and all the sorts of things that we get input on from other boards and commissions. So that was kind of my effort here, and I realized it was a lot of information which you may wish to ask questions about, take under advisement. But while we have Ms. MacArthur here, and she's been kind enough to come a couple of times as it relates to this, I would like for her to provide you whatever input she might have available to you, or in terms of the gradiometer, in terms of the number of plots available. At this point in time, I believe it's approximately 148. Is that correct, Ms. MacArthur?
Yes, not including those which are to be, the gradiometer to be used.
Right.
I did not consider those.
Okay. So she came before the board once before regarding the use of the gradiometer. I think it was approximately $500. Is that correct? Okay. And that allows us to know exactly what those lots or plots have in them. And there are other issues that I think the board needs to consider, for example, land acquisition as it relates to the cemetery, if we wish to add some property to the cemetery, and also I have recommended that we go up in the price of the lots. So those are all things that I think the board might want to consider. And we can do whatever is the board's pleasure. The ordinance was drafted, I drafted it based on another ordinance, but passed it by Mr. Favor, and he said that it met at least some measure of standard for consideration. And then the gradiometer, and then the rules and regulations. Ms. MacArthur was wanting some rules and regulations for the cemetery's use. So all of those things are there for your consideration.
One comment about the gradiometer, I thought we had already approved its use in that earlier meeting with Alderman Perkins, I believe, dissenting on that vote.
Well, my understanding was that we had approved her researching it.
That's what I was doing, sorry.
So,
I thought we'd approved the
Okay,
use
well,
of it.
in that case, we didn't have a dollar figure attached to it at the time, and I think she researched that and came up with the $500. So I believe, whatever, if that's the board's pleasure, then that's fine, but that was my understanding as well as hers, so.
Right, of course, it depends on what those minutes say.
It would.
You know.
Take this under advisement, review.
Yeah. Camp has suggested that given the amount of thought that needs to be given to this particular matter, that we take it under advisement till a subsequent meeting, and I would so move.
We have a second to taking this under advisement.
Second.
We have a motion with a second to take, and we'll be taking all three of these items under advisement, except for the grandometer. Is that?
The gradiometer, or
Again, it depends on what the minutes say.
Okay.
Let's go ahead out of an abundance of caution.
Thank you.
Have we voted on that?
No.
Okay, let's vote on that, and then I'll have a motion.
We need to have a motion for it.
Items 1 and 3, is that correct?
1 and 3. We have a motion just to take under advisement to review, because what we're doing here is creating ordinance for a cemetery commission, and then we're also all of a sudden are considering consideration and approval of rules and regulations for the use and operation of the cemetery. That's not me.
And
That's not me.
in doing that, is it the board's pleasure that I bring it back at the next meeting? Or
I think that would probably be advisable.
November 1 meeting?
Are we to the
Thank you.
discussion stage?
Yes.
Ms. MacArthur, these rules are Ms. Spruill, the rules and regulations for the operation, these are in existence, proposed for?
They are proposed for your consideration. They are a summary of rules for varying cemeteries in this area. They have passed by your city attorney, they have passed by other attorneys on the way here. Simply, it seems to me to operate something of that magnitude, you have to have a few rules.
That's right.
And that's my intent there.
Okay, thank you.
So a motion and a second, we take this under advisement. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Passes. This brings us down to the grandometer. Am I not mispronouncing that, the use? Do we have a motion for its use to be taken into consideration?
In case it was not done earlier, I move that we approve the use of the gradiometer to survey the appropriate sections of the cemetery to determine availability of space.
Excellent. Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
We have a motion with a second. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those opposed, please. 2. Thank you. That brings us down for consideration or authorization for the airport board to seek quotes for tree and stump removal. Are you going to take care of that too?
Well, I actually, had I thought my way through it, probably would have put it on the consent agenda, but we do have Mr. Harden here from the airport and Randy Lincoln from the airport. Basically, it's the tree clearing around the AWAS, the automated weather, and there's an opportunity for some FAA grant money to do that. I think the proportion that we would get, or that we would need to expend would be, what, 2.5% of 11,000 or something like that, or 5%?
If the project that we have comes in under budget, it would cost us 2.5%, and if we go over budget and get approval of the amendment, it would cost us 5%.
Okay.
And the approximate cost of the tree removal is $11,000.
Okay. So that's the order of magnitude that we're looking at. And this is just a authorization to seek quotes.
Seek
This jump.
quotes is all this is,
To seek quotes.
authorization. Do I have a motion that we have authorization to seek quotes?
Mayor?
Yes.
There's one other procedure that I found out late this afternoon is required, and I have a draft letter for your signature to send to the FAA in Jackson that will amend the scope, request amendment of the scope of the current project to include this tree removal, and then it may be covered by the grant monies. So it would be to, we really need to proceed with the work, and there's nothing, we can be reimbursed under the grant money for proceeding with it, but what makes time of the essence right now in going ahead and getting the work done is that we have, after dark, we only have two means of ascertaining the wind direction out there. One is an automated reporting system that Ms. Rule mentioned that is not operable because of trees being too close to it, and we had to take it out of service due to the liability of continued operation. The other is a lighted windsock, but we had to take the lighted windsock down because it was in the path of construction of the new taxiway. So as it stands right now, after dark, you don't have any way of ascertaining which way the wind's blowing for aircraft coming in the lane.
Mr. Mayor and Board, I would then move that the mayor be authorized to execute a letter requesting approval from the Federal Aviation Administration by and through the appropriate state authorities to amend the existing airport grant to allow this tree and stump removal project to become part of the grant, and that the city proceed to obtain the necessary bids or quotes to determine a contractor to provide the tree and stump removal service. That get about everything?
Do we have a second? We have a motion with a second. Any further discussion?
Hold on.
Just wait a minute, I'm
For
sorry.
it to be reimbursed, we would need to authorize the contractor that's already at work out there to proceed with the work. And we've already obtained two quotes, and they were within $500 of each other. Our contractor was $500 higher than the other, but we do need to do this as a change order to that project after the approval of the scope amendment is done. We've been assured, it's kind of in a circle, but we've been assured that the tree removal will commence immediately and we can be reimbursed.
Well, the tree removal can't commence immediately because some of that's not our property.
That is true.
So, no, it cannot.
You're exactly
But we need to, I thought this was to get quotes. So you're now amending that, not just to get quotes.
As soon as we,
Been to a meeting,
if you're familiar with that little slice of property that we own on all the property.
I'm looking at some.
We get easement to the land, we can remove the trees.
New information.
Well, I understand. We're getting you information every time we have the airport board here.
Well, seems to be things that occur, but
Ms. Pruitt, I think we all can act on what's before us, so what you.
I understand.
What
if there's an opportunity for us to cut the trees using the grant monies that are part of this other project, then I think we should proceed with it, making sure that we do not cut trees that are not on our property. But I have spoken with Ms. Booth, whose property would be impacted, and she has said that she's amenable. We just need to know what the cutting area would be, and she said she would be willing to discuss that with us. But we would not cut before we talked with her.
We have a motion presently with a second that we proceed with the first part of this as far as authorizing a signature to get the...
To get the
money.
grant amended.
That's right.
And that we, if we have quotes, that we proceed on with the existing contract. Of course, not doing work on property that, over which we have no control. And do
Absolutely.
not have easements or permission.
Do we have a second? All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. It's 6. All those opposed, raise their hands. 6-1.
Thank you.
Okay, this brings us down to the office of the city clerk, the approval of additional claims docket.
You additions to the claims docket. These are those claims that has to be paid this month, so they can be keyed into last fiscal year, the September 30th date.
Recommend approval, Ms. Outlaw.
I do.
Move approval.
We have a motion to move approval of the claims docket. Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
We have a motion with a second. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those opposed, raise your hands. 5-2. Thank you, ma'am.
Oh, well, I have one other claim. It's from the police department. They're wanting to, it looks like the chassis for the dog truck.
I offered my Crown Victoria to rip the hood off, the trunk off the back and put the animals that need to be smoothed in the back seat.
I don't know, this seems to be a little
No,
bit...
you quit talking about my Mercedes.
But in order for them to get the GSA amount that, which is $1,200 less, it has to go through Mississippi Office Surplus Properties. But we have to pay in advance so they can order the truck to reap that benefit.
So you're asking that we approve an advance payment to
Mississippi Office Surplus Property.
of surplus property, which is a state agency.
Yes.
For procurement of this, I would move that we authorize the advance as required by the rules of the Mississippi Surplus Property Procurement Commission.
Thank you. Do we have a second to that?
Second.
Do we have a second? All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? 6-1. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Brings us up to the fire chief and your lawnmower chief.
Oh, wait just a minute. We have the, right.
That's right, excuse me. Well, I had it listed here that we were taking the various departments as such. That was on the agenda, and I wrote this other down and ahead of that is department.
Well, it was under the office of the city clerk. I just placed it under there.
Oh, you did put it, okay, excuse me.
And you have in front of you a letter of proposal from them. My only recommendation is that they've done this in the past, and apparently the accountants is very satisfied with their work. They're familiar with us. My only recommendation is that we add a clause in there that says that if they don't, within 90 days, if they don't provide us the results of the audit, assuming we have given them all the documentation that they've requested, that we have a penalty clause in there, 1%, 1.5%, whatever is the board's pleasure, but it offers us an opportunity to get a timely audit with some encouragement.
They charge us if we don't.
I doubt that 3 months will do it.
Well, their engagement letter says that they can do it in 90 days. So it's merely requesting or kind of causing them to live up to that.
Mr. Favor,
And that's assuming, I'm sorry, Mr. Vice Mayor, but that's assuming that we have provided everything that they have asked for, and we've been coming with our data.
All right, if the engagement letter specifies that, I would move that the firm of Watkins, Ward, and Stafford be retained to do the city's 2004-2005 municipal audit, and that the mayor be authorized to sign the letter of engagement.
Are you going to include the recommendation from
I was just recommending a penalty clause.
I would say no if they don't furnish the audit in a timely fashion. We can always change auditors.
They've got a not to exceed cost in there.
Are you done with your motion?
Yes,
We,
I am.
we have a motion, and do we have a second to the motion?
Second.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to offer an amendment to the motion.
I'm listening.
And the amendment is to accept the recommendation from the CAO, which I feel is very reasonable, and that 90 days is enough time to turn this around, and we need to hold them to a very heightened standard. So I offer this amendment.
Second.
We have a motion with an amendment, we have an amendment, a motion with amendment to have these folks do their work in a timely fashion. It has a second. We'll vote on the amendment first. All those in favor of the amendment to charge these folks if they cannot present it in a timely fashion, will you please raise your hand?
Just a
during-
second. What again was the amount of the charge?
I was recommended 1.5%, but it was the board's pleasure. I mean, whatever you wanted to do, that was my recommendation.
1.5% of what, the whole?
Of what?
Of
Their-
what?
Contract price.
The contract price.
Okay. All those in favor of the recommended 1.5% of the total contract price is a late penalty, basically, raise your hand. This is an amendment to the motion. If you're in favor of the amendment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5. All those opposed to the amendment? 2. That brings us to the motion itself. We're familiar with the motion at this particular point. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. That's 6. All those opposed? 1. Thank you. This brings us to City Planning, Building Codes Department's consideration and approval of an additional code enforcement officer. And I think we've probably already done that. Have we not?
We have.
All right, I'll take that off. Fire Chief, are you wanting a red lawnmower?
No, sir, it's blue.
Chief, can you talk to us a little bit about this item? It looks like you're asking for a, depending on how my fax copy reads, either a $6,000 or a $7,000 mower. Talk a little bit how you're planning on using
It's
that.
actually $5,988. It's on state contract. It's a 52-inch, no-turn radius commercial mower. And we mow all 4 stations. Some 6 years ago, the city purchased 4 residential riding lawn mowers, and they are totally gone. As a matter of fact, for the last year, we have been borrowing lawn mowers from Parks and Rec and getting them to help us and that sort of thing. And so we're trying to, get the lawn. We're going to let one guy cut all 4 yards and that sort of thing. That's the reason for the 52-inch deck.
And so you'll be transferring a mower from station to station.
Yes, sir. We'll actually put it on a trailer with the weed eaters and hedge trimmers and that sort of thing, and just go from station to station on Fridays.
What's been the history of why do we not have the landscaping department managing the yards there? And it just is a question, I don't, just.
We've always managed our own yards for several reasons, not to take anything from the landscaping company, but it gives the guys something to do. It gives them personal pride of upkeeping their own yards, and if you'll look at our stations, through the help of the garden club, I think we've got some very immaculate lawns and flower beds.
Mr. Chief, I'm glad to hear you say that you do have your own man cutting the grass, so we need to keep the landscape person on the right of ways.
Yes,
So
sir.
that'll give them more time to cut the right of ways where it's badly needed, so it's good you have that available personnel.
I've looked at a couple of fire stations, and they seem to be about the size of a residential yard. Am I missing, is it just the fire stations that we're mowing? And I would imagine in the park here at Russell Street, are there larger areas? I guess.
We've got some 3 acres over at Station 3. There's almost 2 acres at Station 2, and there's probably a little over 1.5 acres at Station 1, and probably about 1 acre at Station 4. So totally, you've got about 6 acres that we're cutting. And I can tell you by experience, a $1,200 Walmart residential riding mower will be gone. We'll buy 4 or 5 of those. This lawnmower here will probably last us for 7, 8, 9 years.
Chief, let me ask you a question. In reference to the mowers, why couldn't the fire department designate days that they want to cut the yards at the fire station? And you had said that you have a trailer. Why couldn't they use one of the park and recreation mowers? I go by there every day, and we have anywhere from 3 to 12 mowers sitting on that shed. Why couldn't we use one of those mowers if they had to specify what mower? They've got all different sizes. I know a 50, you say it's a 52-inch mower?
Yes, sir.
Have we been using a 52-inch mower at the fire station?
Well, basically, we use the residential riding mowers to lay all tore up. We've put twice as much as they cost already in them for repair, and about a year ago, Martha allowed us to use a lawnmower for a while. Clark has been very gracious in letting us borrow. He's actually put his crew on hold on Fridays for us to cut our stations. And we cut our stations, we weed eat for the weekend, because that's when we get the most visitors, and we try to keep our yards looking nice on the weekends. And so we cut all the yards on a Friday.
But have you used a 52-inch mower at the fire stations? Why I'm asking this, I do know if your yards are not designed for a 52-inch mower, you can really run into problems, because that mower will dig in different places if the elevation varies with that head of that mower. And I wondered if we shouldn't try one of the park and rec mowers. And I really don't understand why we couldn't borrow one of those mowers, because I think they have one that's not in use most of the time. Of course, the grass season is basically over now. And I just hate to see us spend more and more money if it's something that we can put off or avoid. Maybe we have more money when the grass season starts in the spring.
To answer the first part of your question, the 52-inch mower does. That's what we've been using through Parks and Rec, and I've talked with Clark, and it works well. It takes us about 4 hours to cut our grass with the 52-inch mower. And that, you know, we get through it. By the time you go to station, about an hour, hour and a half. By the time you weed eat, and by the time you weed the beds and cut the grass, it takes us just about 8 hours to do it on Friday. The other part of it is, I assure you, I wouldn't have put it on the agenda if I didn't think that we needed it. So, you know, I'll do whatever the board wishes.
I mean, I want to be clear. I certainly appreciate the pride that y'all take in the stations, and I think everyone in the city appreciates the pride that's taken in the station. All I was asking you, and I think it's a fair question, what do we need a $6,000 mower for? And then you answer my question. We have a 3-acre lot here. We have a 2-acre lot there. And when I looked at one fire station, it looked about the size of my yard. But when you start talking acres, it starts to make sense. And perhaps it's an uncomfortable thing for us to ask detailed questions, but I think it's what we've been asked to do from a fiduciary responsibility standpoint. Excuse me. So I'm willing to move forward. You've answered my question. That the detail was not provided in the packet. It just lists a $6,000 mower. I certainly would like a $6,000 mower, and I think it's our responsibility to do it. But by the way, you answered my question, and I'm prepared to support the appropriation. And I'd like to do so in the form of a motion.
Excellent. Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
We have a motion with a second that we buy the fire chief an almost $6,000 lawnmower.
For business use only.
with a 52-inch
And a
blade.
I assure you, you won't have a
Is
problem
that
with
a
state law.
stand-up riding on the backside, you ride on the
No,
backside?
sir. You actually sit down.
Okay. All have heard the motion, discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. That's 100%. Very good. Thank you, Chief.
Ride it in the Christmas.
Yes, Mrs. Boyd, I think we're ready for you to talk about your maroon and white truck.
As much as you talked about my maroon and white, my paws on the containers, I'm here, go for it.
I believe, Mr. Cox, you asked for this to be taken off.
I did. Same question. Can you tell us a little bit about the expense, why you're recommending it? Does this cost us more? And just a little more information.
It really depends upon the specs that I put out. I have checked with one vendor, and they said that whatever color that we preferred is what they would purchase, they would give to us with no extra charge. I believe you can buy a vehicle, some of them can be white, some of them can be black. The black ones are much higher than the other kind, but the maroon and white, there's no difference in the charge or anything. Now the wording, I have yet, because I would like for them to also put that in my specs. You're in Bulldog Country, and that's with the exception, with the paw in the middle.
So it sounds like what you're suggesting is if we accepted your recommendation, there wouldn't be an additional cost to the city.
I cannot say that because I have not made up my specs, and I have yet to receive any bids in. But I did receive from you and the purchasing department $345,000 to purchase two vehicles. And one came up to be, at that particular time, we figured it out to be about between 118 and 120. And the other one, 185, something like that. I had $50,000 left over. And I'm within the means.
Well, with all due respect, I believe we should maintain our current ordinance, which has our garbage trucks painted white. So unless someone has a motion, and perhaps Mr. Perkins does, recommending this, I don't believe it would take board action if we left it as our current ordinance.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the board allow a new garbage disposal vehicle to have white cab body, maroon dumpster body with the wording, "You're in Bulldog Country" for the sanitation department. This motion.
Do we have a second to that motion?
Oh, as a current Mississippi State University student, I may be biased in this, but I'm going to second that motion.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Ms. Mayor and Board, just by point of discussion, Richard, I can't wait to see the picture up here in all the Ole Miss newspapers and so forth. Where else better for state to be than a garbage truck in Bulldog Country? Come on. I don't think we need to do this.
Well, the reason for that, he asked the second question, I'll answer that. With the Mississippi State University being one of our main sources, the students, you just approved an alcohol bill for them for late hours or whatever. They're one of the assets to Starkville, Mississippi, and we're one of their assets. And what I would like to do is continue the domino effect that the garbage containers have created with the bulldog paws, the maroon and the white. If you have not, you should ride around and check out all of the businesses that have changed their colors to maroon and white, meaning that we all here in Starkville do and stand behind Mississippi State University because we are in Bulldog Country.
We have a motion with a second that we leave the trucks maroon and white with the Bulldog Country sign on it.
I think Alderman Cox may have had a slight.
If I understand the motion, we do not know how much it'll cost us how much additional taxpayer revenue this will take to change the trash trucks from the current white, the way they're currently specified to be ordered, to painting "You're in Bulldog Country" on the garbage truck.
As I've said before, until I put the specs out and bid it out, have it bidded out, maintain the bids, get the bid, collect the bids, then I would know. But from one vendor that I have spoken with, the colors would not change. The price would not change because of the color.
You see, we get the chassis from one place and we get the bodies from another, and they're put together.
And from what you said, money's already been appropriated
It's already
towards
been
these
appro-
trucks. You have enough,
Exactly.
we'll have enough left over to cover this
Exactly.
stuff. Problems.
And I think that's what I'm suggesting, that I'm not entirely, at least the people who elected me didn't elect me to spend extra money on stenciling "You're in Bulldog Country" on a garbage truck. I take it for granted that apparently painting the chassis one color versus another doesn't cost any additional funds. But this seems to be a misappropriation of city tax revenue.
Mr. Mayor, the gentleman from Ward 5, I mean, that's his personal opinion, was a misappropriation. I mean, it's whatever the board wants to do. We want to expend monies to have a truck this color, then we're within our legal rights. It's not no misappropriation. So I'm ready to vote on this with no further discussion.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. We've had some discussion. You're going to
One
add
more
some discussion.
Yeah, I get a flashback of years ago to someone at the university erecting the sign that they thought was real cute at a street and reflected.
Don't
the,
ever
never,
go
ever
in.
enter. Which after it sank into Mississippi State people, that's not a real good thing. It made the state around with things. Sign came quickly down to say you're in Bulldog Country, and that's a trash truck, I think certainly conveys the wrong image.
What if you just had it painted maroon
garbage.
and white and not put any lettering
We
on
got a
it?
motion on the floor. I think the board is entitled to vote.
We have a motion on the floor, we're going to vote. All those in favor of allowing the trucks to be maroon and white with Bulldog Country on it, raise your hand. Okay, all those opposed, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 opposed to that.
Okay, so do I get the maroon and white trucks at least?
No, did not amend the ordinance.
Motion then.
I'm ready to rule on the next item.
Okay.
Next item.
I would like to make a formal motion then that we go simply with maroon and white without the stenciling on the trucks.
Fine.
We have a motion that we'll go with maroon and white without the stenciling. Do we have a second to that?
Second.
We have a motion with a second. All those in favor of maroon and white trucks, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, we have a 4. All those opposed, raise your hands. It's a 4 to 3 to go with just maroon and white trucks with no stenciling.
Sends the same message, just a little more subtle.
Does not,
About the moment.
well, thank you.
Well, maybe I can put a power to it.
No problem.
This brings us up to executive session with a potential of several items.
Mr. Mayor, I move this meeting closed. Until our executive session is declared.
Okay, the meeting is now closed so that we can discuss the issues that were.
The passage of time. We have shared your joy at the birth of your children, and proudly we have watched them grow. We've taken care of your health care needs during the good times and the not so good. Your parents and grandparents have depended upon us. Together we have shared the struggles and the wonders of life. At Oktibbeha County Hospital, we are celebrating 30 years of being your lifelong choice in healthcare.